Wachok. Heartfelt greetings in my language. Hello, bonjour. Foremost, I would like to acknowledge and thank the Creator for His continuous, unconditional love, protection, guidance, and for providing me with strength and courage. I'm not going to say stand, sit here. So, on behalf, I'm like Susie. I'm trying to avoid wasting paper. There's too much forestry happening in my territory. So on behalf of the Cree Women of Eeyou Istchee Association, I am pleased to acknowledge the ancestral lands and territory of Mohawk people. Miigwech means thank you in my language for allowing me to be one of your guests at your event. My legal name is Linda L. Shecapio, and my spirit name is iskweu, means cloud woman. Melissa, I'll let you know when I'll need my presentation. I am one of 5 children who were raised in a close-knit family by parents and grandparents who maintain strong traditional Cree values and strong connection to the land. I am from the Cree Nation of Mistissini, means Big Rock of Eeyou Istchee. Although I was not born yet at the time, but I am proud to say that my community of Mistissini is where it all began, when our people and the chiefs gathered for the first time towards the evolution of modern history in Eeyou Istchee to discuss James Bay Hydroelectric Project and to formally declare their opposition to the project. On June 29, 30, and July 1, 1971, the chiefs decided to unite as one people, one nation, and one voice for iiyiyiu, iinuu of Eeyou Istchee. History was made. It was the pivotal moment of collective action and empowerment for my people. And Eeyou means Eeyou Iinuu Nation Government of Eeyou Istchee was first created. I am always delighted to hear the history from Dr. Philip Awashis when he shares the stories of this particular era. And I'm fortunate to work with him at times too. He is also from Mistissini, and he is one of our pioneers and architects for the James Bay Northern Quebec Agreement of 1975. I come from a nation where we, Eeyou Iinuu, have a spiritual relationship to the land, which we call Eeyou Istchee, and it means people of the land. Our Eeyou Iinuu culture, language, and traditions and way of life are fundamental and central to our collective and our individual identities. We also consider ourselves the custodians, guardians, and the stewards of Eeyou Istchee. Before I proceed with my story, I want to provide a brief presentation on the Cree Women of Eeyou Istchee Association. It's a grassroots organization, and I will most likely have to skim through it quickly because I only have 30 minutes, but I would like to take this time to promote our organization. Get an assistant. I'm delegating people to help me here. That's how we do it as Eeyou women. Hey. So, wait. Guess I can't turn my back there. So, with my brief presentation, it's going to consist on the general history of Canada and the Indigenous women, and I'll also share a brief history of Eeyou Istchee, and also our organization, the Cree Women of Eeyou Istchee Association, and also Eeyou Iinuu Women and its challenges in Eeyou Istchee. And also I will end my presentation by sharing my story, and I call it Resistance is that tiny whisper within that says, you got this, keep going. And also, to finish off, it will be, of course, I will share something about CWEIA's aspirations and end it with words of encouragement. So, obviously, we all know the general history of Canada and the Indigenous women. There was a lot of abuse, and to this day, there's still some abuse that's taking place. And this is known in history as well. There's certain influence of colonial and dominant cultures and traditions on Indigenous people have placed women in difficult situations in terms of playing effective roles as custodians of their culture, language, traditional livelihood, and self-sufficiency. And I will share a bit of that, of what we encounter as a women's organization. There's also the social, economic, and political marginalization, as well as racial stereotyping, discrimination, and loss of culture, language, and often pride, left Indigenous people in Canada with little social or political power and contributed to economic inequality and even with poverty. There are common issues impacting Indigenous women, and that's poverty, single parenthood, unhealthy lifestyles, family breakups, unemployment, poor housing, violence, and the major wounds from residential school. And there are other issues as well. And for the brief history of my territory, which we call Eeyou Istchee, as I mentioned, there's there was a mega hydroelectric power project that was about to create a big flood in Eeyou Istchee. And back in 1975, there was the signing of James Bay Northern Quebec Agreement. It was an Indigenous land claim, which covers economic development and property issues. And this was the first modern treaty as well. There were young Cree leaders that sought for social justice and nation building, assuming and exercising our rights to govern ourselves as a government, with institutions, but more importantly, as the custodians, stewards, and guardians of Eeyou Istchee, which is the people's land. And the quoting from Dr. Philip Awashi's, he mentioned, "One people, one nation, one voice," which resulted in the establishment of our Grand Council of the Crees of Eeyou Istchee in 1974, and wanted the government to recognize and for the protection of our existing rights within. This was the most pivotal time for all of us. It was a very great intention, and I'm grateful for where I am now, because it really paid my education, I'll say, and also many other things. But throughout the time when the organization of Cree Women of Eeyou Istchee eventually encountered other obstacles. And this is where our leaders at the time, I guess, didn't know as well how it will be in the future. And it was an adoption of a foreign system, intruding our way of life and interrupted our traditional social and governance structures in our societies. And this is Eeyou Istchee, and you'll see along the James Bay, those are considered coastal communities. And you'll see where it says Mistissini, it's considered the inland Cree community. It's a very beautiful territory, and I encourage you to come and visit our territory. So with providing you a bit of the history, but there's also history before the signing of the agreement. And to me, I always share this. It's a quote by late Elder Julie Dijsroff. She's from Shecapio, Quebec. And to me, I don't know what happened previously before the signing, but this really reassures me how our people were. It says, "Since the iiyiyiu people had access to so much money, they seemed to become more dependent on others to do things for them. We always seem to have our hands out, wanting more. We are never satisfied. Before then, people did everything for themselves. They did not sit around waiting for someone to give them money or to build something for them. If someone wanted a house, they found the wood and materials. And when he started building his house, the other men showed up with their hammers and saws and helped without being asked. The women pitched in and cooked for everybody. People seemed happier back then. See, you could kind of see the glimpse of the history of how our people were. So going back to the Cree Women of Eeyou Istchee Association, back in 1990s, it's not long ago, there was a resolution that was passed to recognize our organization. And it supported the chiefs. It supported to recognize our organization. And I'm thankful for who are our gukum now, which are grandmothers, that brought this forth. So January 28, 2009, CWEIA was officially constituted and financially operated under Cree Regional Authority with the service agreement, which is now called Cree Nation Government. So it was not really independent. So there was that influence from our own government. So we encountered challenges, and I'm not going to deny that. But on April 1st, 2017, that's when he said, okay, enough is enough. We want to be independent. And we had no idea how we're going to be, how it's going to be. We just said, okay, let's just cut the umbilical cord. So that's when CWEIA decided to be autonomous from the Cree Nation government. It had nothing to do to segregate or create division. It's just that we felt that we could do much more instead of being under our government. Since then, it has marked slightly over 2-year anniversary of being an independent grassroots organization. It was a great challenge, but we are proud of where we are now, and it has opened greater freedom for us. We are a grassroots organization that continues to advocate for women, our families, our communities, and our nation. We are always seeking partnerships and to align ourselves with other interested and like-minded people to network, support, and empower our efforts. So with this is how our organization is structured. So we have the board of directors, the executive, and our Gukamnoj Council. This is really a solid support system in place, and it was just recently that was created. And this is where we get our guidance and advice, and it's through our grandmothers. We call it Gukamnoj Council. Then we have our internal resource, and also we have our partnerships and networks. So the challenges in Eeyou Istchee, since the signing of James Bay Northern Quebec Agreement, it was succeeded and intended for gender balance as our societies were once structured. Everybody had a role. It was pretty much equivalent for everybody to contribute. Eeyou Istchee has evolved tremendously and developed fast for the past 44 years. As iinuu women, we are now experiencing the realities and the impacts from the adopted patriarchal system. There are many small grassroots-oriented regional and local women's groups which receive little funding or no funding at all, which creates difficulties to operate with or serving our communities. There is a silo effect that's common in Eeyou Istchee, and there are a lot of reactive measures that are typical in Eeyou Istchee, which often lacks sustainable and long-term approach to all our efforts, especially healing the wounds of colonization. Colonization is very much needed. And oftentimes our elders are the ones that remind us there is a poverty in our spirits, which we call our Nishiyu spirit, that needs to be revived, and there is still a lot of work ahead of us for healing and the well-being of our nation. Eeyou Istchee is at the state of its pivotal time in approaching our collective actions, especially the inclusion of women, at the forefront of major decision-making table for our nation. The important roles of our sacred circle needs to be reclaimed and honored as women and the primary caregivers, and the Gukamunuj extends their influence to the next generation. And that's why there is that resistance where we continue, because I'll eventually share something, one of the teachings, and you will get a glimpse of what the teaching brings. So, here I am at the Resistance of Indigenous Women in the Americas, Dialogues, Reflections, and Actions, Symposium 2019. Perhaps you are wondering too what story I will be sharing. I too was uncertain. When I was first approached to be a speaker at this event, I had to reflect about my journey of where I am today. I am a person who is passionate, driven, and always enthusiastic about finding better approaches and solutions to our concerns and issues. I try to keep my speaking engagements with positive messages, although I don't think we have any problems, nor did we have any before colonization. It may sound a little naive, but as a iiyiyiu woman, we are just simply trying to create a space where we can excel too, as First Nations people in general, and thrive within the patriarchal and foreign system. I have many moments, which I call my stepping stones towards decolonization. Particularly back in 2012, 2013, many of you probably are aware of the Idle No More movement in Canada. Like many other Indigenous women, this is when I actually took action towards a decolonization journey, not only in my personal journey, but also in my professional life. This movement impacted me in many ways, and I had to reflect on myself as Iinuu woman. And this inner voice, which I call the whisper of resistance. And I always heard this: you got this, keep going. And this little inner voice became louder to my being. Many times, fear really tried to control me, but this was my awakening moment, and to take action. So I will share a glimpse of teachings, messages, and where I think the efforts need to be focused. But before I continue, I must say thank you to the organizers of this event. May you continue to keep up the great work that you do. Since my commitment with CWEIA and my efforts towards decolonization, I believe in creating allies with the researchers, because from my experience, they have been more receptive to the realities of First Nations people, especially to us First Nations women. CWEIA is in partnership with the Réseau Dialogue, probably didn't say it well. There is a reciprocal relationship happening between First Nations people and the people from the academia world. Once again, I encourage the work that you do, and hopefully you too will influence all levels of governments and to the rest of the world to wholeheartedly understand for the need of greater space for First Nations people to simply be and to show our authentic and truthful selves to the world too. We all have gifts to uphold and to share. We all deserve to succeed in every capacity possible while respecting, nurturing, protecting, and preserving and holding the high esteem of our First Nations identity, language, culture, and our way of life. I am indeed grateful for both good and bad experiences, which I don't want to focus or bring to your attention, because I don't believe in that. I believe in focusing on the positive and continuing to move forward. I had many bad experiences as a leader for the Cree woman, but this is not the place and time to share this. but I encourage that we continue to move forward and do the necessary work. Because as iiyiyiu women, this is the driving force, the core essence, and the compelling strengths of all women, and our great importance of positive influence we have towards the upbringing of healthier families, communities, and nations, and globally. One of my many great teachers, Elder Robbie Matthew from Shecapio, often reminds me that women are the life givers, life educators, and life nurturers. I took this message to my heart, and it is a beautiful reminder that grounds me to advance confidently in my role, not just as a woman, mother, and recently I became a grandmother, so it's pushing me more to do the necessary work, but also the spokesperson as the president for the Cree Women of Eeyou Istchee Association. Women, we are the primary caregivers in our households. We have been far too long silent about our communities and priorities. I believe once we are reawakened and collectively identify our vision, voice, and direction, we will have positioned ourselves to join greater force for the well-being and healing of our people. I share with you another beautiful teaching I received about moving the canoe forward. This is a metaphor to be understood and to grasp the essence of gender-balanced roles. The teaching goes, in the canoe, certain spaces are utilized by certain people. In the back of the canoe, the man sits and steers the canoe because of his physical strength. And in the middle of the canoe, the children sit still and observe and ready to learn. And the front of the canoe, the woman sits and sees up ahead and communicates with the man sitting in the back of where to go and not to go, such as to avoid hitting rocks. This woman upholds that future. This is a prime example or a metaphor that we women need to resist the patriarchal system and rise from the many challenges it may create for us to dishonor our true roles and responsibilities. There is evolution and the development and establishing our structures, such as institutions and systems in Eeyou Istchee. It allowed greater responsibility for our communities to continue to prosper progressively, and I'm grateful for that. However, to this day, we continue to progress, and to my fellow iiyiyiu women, I tell them, if we do not unite and collectively act, we will have a lot of work to do, or even leave the unfinished work to our daughters, or even to our granddaughters, which they will have bigger challenges to meet and overcome in the future. I believe we have not yet found our collective strength and a solid support system. We have not yet fully prepared the next generation to move forward and thrive of the unknown future. I encourage you all women to create allies, to support, to stand together, and generate a greater force of resistance and claim our roles and responsibilities and to decolonize ourselves and all spaces and environments where we can fully utilize our voices. In closing, I believe a leader is responsible for an important impact of grassroots organizing and building successful advocacy movement and a responsibility to deepen respectful and reciprocal relationships at all levels of governments and other stakeholders, including the research partners, by clearly communicating, participating, and taking action to find better approaches, and moving forward with one foot outside Eeyou Istchee for making connections, and the other foot remaining in Eeyou Istchee for engaging with iinuu experiences, knowledge, and wisdom. And I think this is where the essence of our work and our efforts are going in that direction for our grassroots organization. I leave you with this. You can, okay. You're ahead of me. Thank you.
You were citing it.
So I leave you with this, with CWEIA's aspirations and some words of encouragement. CWEIA is not alone to wish for our vision to be attained, for our mission to be completed. Many iiyiyiu entities want to work in the same direction as us and have similar mission statements. There are opportunities to work together with organizations towards empowerment and ensuring that grassroots remain to uphold and own their power of what is best and suitable to their community needs. Possibilities are endless, and we can approach other organizations as well as the existing leadership to recognize and respond to the needs in our communities and as a nation. We iiyiyiu women know and understand the heartbeat of our communities, and the solutions are within us. That's why there's a need of working together, even outside people from Eeyou Istchee, just creating that partnership, because we all have a common mission or vision. On a final note, I want to say we women all place ourselves in danger or another when we stand up, but we place our children and grandchildren in even greater danger when we don't stand up and speak up. I want all women to know that we are instrumental, we are the backbone, and we are the foundation for healthy families, communities, and nation. We are strong, courageous, resilient, and indestructible women. We carry the weight of our nations on our shoulders. We also carry the next generation. We will continue to move forward and ensure that we women and our children will once again reclaim our sacred circles, where it upholds a place of prominence, honor, and respect for all. We are stronger than our minds can conceive. Everything we need lies within. Women, we need to assert ourselves, connect, and hold a space to influence the central role of our leadership in ensuring our identity, culture, language, and way of life represent at all levels, from home, community, and nation. We are the influence, and we must ensure the transmission of knowledge is passed on to the next generation. Miigwech.